Morning, everyone. Sorry, I'm
Sorry,
late.
I'm late.
I'm just going to make sure everybody's muted. You guys don't have to worry about any of that. Yep. And so basically the reason why I'm late is because my cat is missing and we kind of could hear that he's just out around the corner and got in a big old fight, and I was trying to rescue him and I haven't managed to rescue him. So hopefully he'll come home now. Anyways, so that was what was delayed me. Let me raise you up a little bit and then we'll crack into it. So today we're talking about PMS, probably one of my favourite subjects because it's quite a weird one. Let's go up my notes for you guys. So PMS stands for premenstrual syndrome, but you can also have PMT, premenstrual tension. They get used interchangeably, really, but the syndrome part of it is very interesting. So just in case you haven't used Zoom before, if you mouse around the screen, you'll see that at the bottom there's a chat button, and that's how you guys can communicate with me during the session today. And you can, it will ping up for me, so it's really quite a nice way to talk. All right, let me share this with you guys. So I'm a medical herbalist. That means that I was trained for 3 years on a degree program and got 500 hours of experience treating patients before beginning to practice. And then I practiced taking patients for just over 10 years before stopping. Now I focus on the product side of my business instead, and have really specialised in women's health the entire time, and have a book that looks kind of similar to this front page called Your Period Handbook. So I had period pain for a long time, and I suppose you could say like I've had symptoms of PMS in the past as well, but never really to the point where I felt like I needed medication. But that's not unusual. PMS was actually first defined in 1955, and a syndrome means that it's a collection of symptoms. And in this case, they always coincide with the week before the period. What exact symptoms? Well, there's like over 150 have been listed over the years, and nobody really agrees on how many you should have from the list in order to qualify as having PMS. There's no standardized list either. And so because symptoms are so vast, you could say that like pretty much every woman ever will have it at some point. Oh, thanks. Just delivery. So we've never been able to discover like one hormone that is the cause of PMS. People think that it seems to be due to too much estrogen, but actually that's never been verified in enough people for it to be considered the cause of PMS. And so therefore there's no hormonal treatment that definitely will work for like a broad spectrum of people. So it kind of raises the question, like, if it's really that common and every woman's going to have it, is it an illness? Like, we talk about it in terms of medicine and illness, but I think a lot of people recognize that it's not one. So it's quite a funny thing that we've come to create. And I was just reading recently that you could consider it just a social construct rather than like a pathology, or I don't know how to put it, but it's kind of like saying, you know how you always feel really lethargic after a big meal? You could say, oh, well, that's post-meal syndrome. And by giving it that kind of context of like it's a pathology, makes us identify with it in that way, and always think of it as problematic, that's for sure, and potentially or seek out medicine treatments for it. And what's interesting is that it started to be named and constructed in this way in the 50s, around about the same kind of time that we stopped thinking of menstruation as an illness. And our history of thinking of menstruation as an illness goes to Victorian times. I haven't really seen evidence that it goes back further than that. It seems to be created during the Victorian era. And menstruation is sort of starts to be seen as an illness that occurs when you don't get pregnant. Like basically it would be more natural for you to be pregnant and you haven't become pregnant, so you menstruate, and that is like a sickness for a little time. It would definitely be considered a condition. And then as we produce more and more inventions to help us manage menstruation, like our pad technology improves, and then we end up having tampons introduced as well. As tampons really take off in the 40s, and as a result of the Second World War, we start to totally redefine menstruation. So for a long time, we'd thought of menstruation as an illness. Then in the 40s, when women are introduced into the workforce en masse, there was a big move within their employers to re-educate these women because they were taking time off for their periods. And so they had these high rates of absenteeism, and they wanted to reduce that, and they realized that they needed to teach women that actually menstruation isn't an illness. You can just carry on as normal, stay at work, take some paracetamols. Like that had become a thing for them then. And yeah, they rolled out all these education programs, and what were they called? They were so kind of like a counselor, like a lay person to behave almost like a nurse that they would go to and be like, you know, I don't want to come in because my periods are doing this or whatever. And they'd be like, oh, no worries, we'll sort you out with some childcare, or we'll get you some painkillers or whatever. And they just wanted to keep people in the workforce. And there are adverts talking about Tampax helping you stay at work during the war. And there are even adverts that essentially say, like, if women take time off work, they're potentially killing a male soldier who's at war. It's a really interesting bit of history that I just recently was researching for I'm currently doing a master's at Oxford in design history. So that's my sort of like geeky thing that I'm really loving. So it's kind of interesting that it comes about the same time that we stop thinking menstruation as an illness. Next page, please. There we go. So I think we should really reframe PMS. It should be thought of as the premenstrual phase, really. The symptoms happen, but let's not think of them in terms of medicine. Let's think of them as a natural part of the hormone cycle. And this phase is a time where, although we have low energy and low patience, we have really high intuition. So the things that are really pissing us off during the premenstrual phase shouldn't be thought of as a momentary glitch or like a sort of a short phase of madness. People shouldn't be brushing them off, because in all likelihood that thing that's annoyed you normally would annoy you, but you'd have more tolerance for it. And if we can take the time to observe those things without judgment, without having that knee-jerk reaction of arguing or of shouting at somebody, and wait till we menstruate, then we'll probably be able to really work our way through them in a positive way and be able to come up with answers to the problems that have been highlighted. So I like to think of this premenstrual phase is more like a magnifying glass on life. It's very unusual for it to create problems out of thin air, but if you do find that the problems that are being highlighted seem superficial or strange, then I might suggest that there's probably something else deeper under the surface, and your your subconscious is very cleverly focusing in on something that probably isn't that big of a deal, so that you don't have to deal with the big thing. So it's something that I would suggest that people journal about and try and keep a record of the stuff that's like become really intolerable during that time of the month, and come back to it later. So in this context, what herbs are we going to use to help us? Because I'm saying that it's not a hormonal problem in the sense that we don't have to change our hormones in order to get rid of it. It's quite normal for our hormones to be changing through the month. And it's wrong of us to think of it as a imbalance, because when we think of it as a imbalance, then we're basically pathologizing women or people with ovaries as a whole. And I would argue that that pathologizing of the female body is a really, really old patriarchal way that we can be sexist against ourselves. So what we can do is support our body in other ways, in more holistic ways during this phase, so that we get less irritable and we get less, we have more tolerance for things. And actually, the premenstrual phase can be quite a peaceful time if you're able to retreat, spend time with yourself, and put some extra efforts into self-care. All of these things can be almost impossible right now with quarantine and lockdown, depending on who you're sharing your space with, really. So I am expecting PMS to be a lot worse for a lot of people. But for those few that are able to have time to themselves and spend time doing self-care, then I would really recommend that you experiment with this, because you probably find that your PMS will be a lot less. So I would recommend that people work with these 3 types of herbs: adaptogens, relaxants, and uterine tonics. Adaptogens help us to adapt to stress, so they also help us to adapt to changing life circumstances. They're really suitable right now with everything that's happening. Ashwagandha is also nice from the side of the fact that it is relaxing and supports fertility. Licorice, on the other hand, is also nice if you get digestive problems or lung issues. You can look each one up individually in the back of my book, which has a materia medica in it. And so the more things that you see that a herb is good for that you've had, either in the past or presently, the more likely that herb is to suit you. And I would recommend that you choose one herb from each of these slides to try, or even just one if one really sings to you. Relaxants are herbs that help us to relax. You could use passion flower or chamomile. The chamomile is readily available in the shops, like in tea bags. Passion flower, not so much. You'll probably find it mixed into other sleep tea blends. I'll tell you how to take them at the end. Passion flower is really nice if you want to feel kind of dreamy. Chamomile is nice if you need a little bit of a cheery, childish lift. Then we have uterine tonics. Now, all of these are in one of my products, which I'll talk about last. But uterine tonics are herbs that help to tone the uterus. They also seem to be hormone balancers in a really general sense. I would recommend choosing either Lady's Mantle or Raspberry from this list. I've listed them all just because they are all in this product that I make. So Lady's Mantle is really nice for period pain, so is raspberry leaf. In fact, there's a lot of overlap between the two, but they have lovely separate, what's it called? They are associated with different goddesses, which is why I like to combine them. They both can be used to help with labor pain. They both can be used to help with the recovery of the uterus after giving birth. Yeah, there's a lot of overlap, and I'd really recommend taking them both. Why not? So with these herbs, you can use them in these different ways: infusions, decoctions, tinctures, potentially as powders. They're harder to come by. Infusions, you just would be using the dried herb, which you can buy from Neal's Herb Remedies or Baldwin's when they're open. I don't think that they're actually available right now. You can buy from a company called the Urban Fringe, I think, and there's one called, where can I think of it? Indigo Herbs, which is based in Bristol or Glastonbury. And there's also a shop that I used to work at in Faversham called Apotheca that you'd probably be able to get it at. But they don't have a regular online store. You just ring them and let them know like what you're interested in, and they'll sort you out, because almost everyone that works there is a herbalist. So that's nice. With an infusion, you're pouring boiling water onto your dried herb material, letting it infuse for 5 minutes, and then straining it out before drinking it. And for a medicinal amount, you'd want to have 3 cups a day. It's a similar kind of thing with your tinctures. You want to have it 3 times a day, and decoctions 3 times a day. Can you write the last part you said about getting herbs? Yeah, I actually write it up in the email that I sent out with the recording of the video, so that you can go back and find links. But I think it's called Urban Fringe Herbs and Indigo Herbs. But I'll find links, because I'm not sure I've got that name completely right. A decoction is very similar to an infusion. You're putting the dried herb into cold water though, and putting that on the hob, and bringing it up to a boil, letting it simmer for 5 to 10 minutes, and straining it, and having that 3 times a day. With a tincture, you're having it 3 times a day again, but if you're using a single herb, then you take 2 mils 3 times a day, and if you're using a combination of herbs, then I recommend 5 mils 3 times a day. And then we have powders. You're going to find them like nearly impossible to get hold of, but I've mentioned them because I use them a lot in the products that I make. So this really is like a toolkit for PMS in many ways. Rest of Resilience is an example of the powders. It's just powdered herbs that you add to nut milk or oat milk, and it's got chai spices in, so it tastes really nice. And that is full of adaptogens and nerve tonics. So that's going to help you to adapt to stress and feel less stressed in the long term as well. This is really nice. Rest of Resilience is particularly nice if you've had long-term stress already and you're feeling burnt out. The Inner Goddess drops is a tincture, and the premenstrual piece is also a tincture. The Inner Goddess is the combination that I showed you at the end there with Uterine tonics. It's really good for embodiment, for getting into the flow of your cycle, for feeling more acceptance over the ebb and flow of it, the good days and the bad days. I really recommend it if you're at the start of your journey of trying to get more in sync with your period. The Moontime Belly Balm is for period pain, it's a little bit different. But the premenstrual me time and the premenstrual piece are designed exactly for PMS. Premenstrual me time has relaxing, hormone balancing essential oils mixed in with Epsom salt, so you can bathe in that. It's a big step for a really nice self-care ritual and gives you the excuse to have some me time. And then the premenstrual peace drops are designed to help you feel calm at the time that you take it. So you can take it preventatively month-long, but you can also use it on the spot if you're feeling a bit more agitated or irritable that day. Then the Aunt Flow is a drinking chocolate for heavy flow. This is a bit different. Is there any questions? I like to speed through things, but the good thing is that you can ask me questions and I can send you the recording. So if I went too quickly on things, then you can go back and have a look. But yeah, it's a whistle-stop tour for PMS. It's one of my favorite topics. And if you want to learn more about it and how to like go with the flow of the cycle, then that's really what my Peaceful Period course is all about. Initially, it was all about PMS, and then I changed it so that it includes like how to deal with really any symptom that I could think of that you might experience during your menstrual cycle. Where's a good place to find out more about the history side of things? I have had to read like journal papers and stuff for the history of PMS. I've never really come across a book that is for the general public that talks much about it. I'll send you the link to the article that I've been reading, which gives a history of PMS. It might be a bit heavy going, but you might find it really interesting. The Peaceful Period course that I run is a 4-week online course. You can take it any time. Like you can do it, complete it in your own time. I'm going to be running it live again though in the summer. But if you join now, you'll be able to be a part of that if you wish. And it teaches you how to chart your period. It teaches you how to deal with naturally with any symptoms that you have to do with your period. And it also teaches you about like natural forms of menstrual products, and yeah, it's all encompassing. It's literally everything that I know was put into that in a really practical way. That is, you know, something that you can work through and learn skills as you go. Do you have any experience of fasting helping with PMS? I think fasting could help with PMS because it would be helping to balance your blood sugar levels. So yeah, but I wouldn't do it just over your PMS period. I would recommend doing like the 5-2 diet and having it already as a regular thing that you're doing, rather than just doing it during the premenstrual phase. I could see that becoming actually making things worse if you do it just over the premenstrual phase. If it's already a part of your weekly routine, I think it'd be really good because it's known to help to balance insulin levels and blood sugar levels, potentially helping to treat things like prediabetes and PCOS, which are both known to cause problems with the hormone cycle and fertility. Hannah, you've taken the course, so informative. Yay, thank you, I'm so glad. I've been adding like new content to it, so you should go back in and check it out if you haven't already. Really fun to hear the history about periods. Thank you for validating the interesting video. How long is the Peaceful Period course? The Peaceful Period course is 4 weeks long, but you can make it last as long as you like. But it's set up so that you would do an hour-long webinar each week for 4 weeks, and then there's a ton of bonus content. Like, yeah, I'm sure you could make it last a lot longer. Did you say take 5 ml of tincture if taking more than 1? Yes, if you're making a combination of herbs, I would recommend having 5 ml of it, because if you think about it, if you've got 5 ingredients in 5 ml, you're probably only having 1 ml of each of the herb. And I've already said that if you're taking a single herb, to have 2 ml each time. So that's the logic. You need to have more if there's more herbs in it. You like yarrow in your mix. Does it work on PMS? Yarrow is really good for heavy blood flow, but I can't remember if it's good for PMS, really. It's not, certainly not the first thing that comes to mind with yarrow. I really think of it as like staunching wounds and stopping heavy blood flow. So a bit different. Yarrow is a really nice herb, but for some reason I never got on with it when it came to period problems. I always end up using raspberry, lady's mantle, mugwort, rose. Those would be my real friends. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'll leave it there, but you can always send me questions in response to the recording of the video, which will go out tomorrow. And in terms of tiredness, Annetta, I would recommend using Adaptogens or the Rested Resilience product that we already have. I've had some people say that it was as good as coffee. So yeah, the Adaptogens are really good if you're super tired, especially if that's been going on for a long time. In fact, some people find them too stimulating. So there you go. All right, guys, well, thank you. I'm sorry I was a bit late, but cat emergencies happen, I guess. Lorna, Gotu Cola is not an adaptogen, it's a circulatory tonic. What are your thoughts on ashwagandha as a tablet? Yes, take ashwagandha as a tablet, by all means. No difference taking it in a latte like I do. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's everything. If I miss one, I'm really sorry. I like hang up on you. But yeah, just email me. There's no problem. Have a nice day, guys. Enjoy the sunshine if you're in the UK. It's lovely out there.